Do you ever wish you'd started a business in your teens that turned over your first 100 grand? Or maybe there's a young person in your life who needs a little business inspiration. Either way, get ready to have your spirits lifted by young Josh Apitz, who launched his burgeoning sunscreen business at the ripe old age of 15. Not 50, 15. It's a wish I'd gone and done that when I was younger, episode 516 of the award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Tim Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of slip, slop, slap marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner, and you are well and truly ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. Big episode today. Young Josh Apitz joins us from the sunny Gold Coast to share why and how he launched Seagull Milk when most young people his age are surfing, studying and scrolling. Mainly scrolling. This week's motivated listener is benefiting hugely from customer reviews thanks to a tip picked up on this show. And I let you in on next week's guest who's taking on the top end of town in one of the most competitive markets going around. As per usual, team, there's marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Righto, hands up if you are ready to be inspired. 2 years ago, aged 15, Josh Apitz founded Seagull Milk. It's a sunscreen, and he founded it for two reasons. One, as a surfer, he couldn't find a sunscreen that wasn't greasy, didn't sting his eyes or harm his body through toxic ingredients. And two, he discovered that his family history had been heavily impacted by skin cancer. Now, this is a great story of a young fellow chasing his entrepreneurial dream. And whilst he doesn't have all the answers just yet, I'm guessing the business and marketing insights you're about to hear weren't bouncing around inside your head as you navigated your way through puberty. They certainly weren't bouncing around mine. I had much more important things to wrap my head around. Yeah, you guessed it. I started off by asking Josh a most confronting question. How many seagulls were milked in the making of Seagull Milk sunscreen?
Between my friends and I, we joke about it, but there's definitely no seagulls milked. I'm glad to announce that. Otherwise, our vegan clientele wouldn't be too terribly happy with us.
And look, if you do figure out how to milk a seagull, there's a whole new business over there anyway. Isn't seagull milk slang for seagull poo?
Yeah. We've had a lot of people come up to us with that impression, and yeah, it's a good icebreaker for a business to start. A lot of people come up to us and they're quite confused, and we have to sort of educate them a bit, have a bit of fun. But I guess that's the whole point behind it, to have a bit of fun. So yeah, we enjoy it.
What other names did you consider, Josh?
Oh, I had a couple really lame ones. I had Avoca. I don't know. I just kept seeing Avoca everywhere. I'm like, oh, that could be kind of cool, but it just doesn't ting a bell. Yeah, funny story. We were just surfing, my friends and myself, and we went down to Byron Bay, and I had the idea for Seagull Milk, and at this point didn't have the idea for the name, and I was sort of brainstorming with my friends. I'm like, I don't know what we should call it, guys. Help me out here. And so one of my closest friends, Josiah, we were in the car and we're just chucking names around, and all of a sudden he just blubbles out Seagull Milk, and we're just like, what the heck? Where the heck did that come from? And then next minute we just find ourselves fully laughing the whole trip down to Byron Bay, and the rest is sort of history. It's sort of stuck, and talked about it to a couple of people, and then a couple of months later they're like, oh, that's Seagull Milk, and we just realized it was the one. It stuck in people's head and they just didn't forget it. So
love it, mate.
Yeah.
And there's a story around it. We all know how important storytelling is in marketing. You were a 15-year-old bloke. This is 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, where most 15-year-old blokes are focused on getting a tan. You decided to create a sunscreen and stop them getting a tan. What was going on there? Why?
Well, yeah, I was sort of in that boat as well. I was guilty of wanting to go and tan. I had a pretty tan body back then, but a lot has changed since then. But yeah, my sort of story was I've come from a family affected by skin cancer. My grandparents have had skin cancer. My dad's had skin cancer. My mum recently had a skin cancer chopped out. So it's been like a generational family issue. And so for me, I've always been aware, especially in Australia, as any Aussie would be, the sun here is just so strong, and especially in Queensland. So for me, sun safety's always been like top of priority, especially when it comes to protecting your health. My family's been very health conscious from day dot, like been doing natural products. We're well aware around the chemicals and everything like that. So for us, it's been a big part of our life.
As a 15-year-old bloke, were you like actively looking to start a business?
Oh, no, heck no. I wanted to be a tradie, typical tradie, carpenter. So I had nothing in the world that sparked my interest in getting into business. There was nothing. I was just pure, work hard, get a job, no entrepreneurial mind. Like I had a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. Like as far as it would go, it would be buying surfboards off Gumtree, trying them out because I couldn't afford buying brand new surfboards off the start. So I would just buy secondhand ones off Gumtree, ride them. If I liked them, I would keep them. If I didn't, I would like repair them, make them look fresh, take really nice photos, and then sell them, make a profit, and then invest in a new board that I thought I would like. So I was sort of entrepreneurial like that, but never did I ever think I would fully get full-time into business.
Okay, so what is the spark that encouraged you to actually go, there's an idea there, okay, you're from a skin cancer affected family, you've come up with an idea for sun cream. No shortages of sun cream on the market. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
So what forced you or encouraged you or inspired you to take that step and register a business?
I mean, there was a lot of things at the time. Like I remember I was coming out of year 8 and a lot of my friends were reading books like just Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. There was all these like little entrepreneurial friends of mine, and they were all just like looking around. So we're in our sort of tight group. We all played rugby together and stuff, and we were just sort of having a look at what's out there. Obviously at that age, just sort of exploring the world. And so I sort of got hung up with those guys, and I was talking to one of my friends, his name's Jakoda, and he was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad at the time, and I picked up that book and it's inspired me so much. I'm like, holy crap, like, I didn't know a world outside of just working hard and, getting a job. I didn't even know investing existed in properties and stuff. And from that point, I was like, man, as soon as I become a tradie, I'm just going to like save my money and invest it in property. And that was my sort of strategy plan, because I knew that, investing was a big part of, wealth and success, and especially financial success. So that sort of got me on my journey of thinking differently to, I guess, the standard typical go to uni, get a job, or go to TAFE and get a job. So
did you have a few business ideas in mind, or with the sunscreen thing just was like it was an obvious one for you?
Oh, at the time, so when it all started, so after that, I sort of, just became more and more aware that I was interested in business, or interested in, like, had an entrepreneurial mindset, and I wanted to do something, or, harness my passion and not work for someone else. I've come from a family where that's sort of, the way, be the 3% different, which I'm being super blessed with.
What do you mean by be the 3% different?
So the world's sort of programmed that you go to school, do well in school, pass school, fit the system, get an OP or an ATAR at my age, and then you go to uni, study, pay a tuition, get a job, and then just that's how life rolls. And so for me, I've always been, until I got to the right age where I could fully understand how life sort of works, and looking around and seeing what other people were doing, I sort of realized that there's another way to life. There's like this 3% that are doing it differently and pulling off really, really cool things, and they're living life, I guess, on like risking, looks like they're risking it all, but they're just like living passionately and doing what they love to do. And so for me, I was like, man, that would be so cool to do. Like, I don't want to have to work for, someone else. And everyone always talks about like, whose dreams are you working for? Are you working for someone else's, or are you working for your own? And I'm like, I've got my own, I'm quite a very creative person, and I'm like, I want to do things like that are like heartfelt for me, like, helping kids that don't have dads, because that was a thing that sort of I've come from, like, my dad left when I was a really young kid, and so that was a big pain issue for me. And I'm like, man, I don't want to go and be a tradie. Like, I want to go and empower like kids like me who have come from, I guess, not as privileged households where we've had to work for our family, and like empower them that they can, you know, have a successful life, and it doesn't matter where they start, you know, it matters where they end up. So that was sort of the 3% mind shift click that I had, and I'm like, man, like there's so much more to life, and it's all just perspective from then on. And I was just getting more and more perspective from more and more people, and that's sort of where it started.
Beautifully said, Josh. Wow. You have the idea for Seagull Milk. You go, I'm going to turn this into a business. At this point, you are at school, at a school. You decide to become homeschooled. Why that decision? Why did that help you launch the business?
There was a couple reasons. Of course, like time was a big thing for me. I didn't want to waste my time at school. I felt like it was very restrictive. I had to, as any kid would do, homework. I had all these commitments I had to do, and I just found it wasn't the right environment for me to be around, especially, my friends and stuff. I just found, not to be judgmental, but they weren't top think, like, they weren't thinking at the same level at that time. Like, there's a couple, but it wasn't a like big open discussion, like, let's be world changers. It was more like, we're in the system, and I'm like, I just gotta be me and go and do my own thing. So that was one key reason, and it sort of just flowed from there. I was like, okay, homeschool would be the best option. I know I've got the discipline to be able to do school by myself and, run a business at that time as well. Obviously, my mum was a big help at that current point, because I was, year 8, year 9, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And as I said, like, I didn't come from a business knowledgeable background. I just sort of got inspired and was like, I want to do this, and then just went full in sort of thing. And so I had a lot of help from like mentors and from parents at the start, but then I just sort of took on full responsibility, and now it is where it is today. So
you're 15 years old, you go and tell your mates, family and friends that you're going to start a sun cream business. I imagine there was some naysayers, a bit of negativity around. What did that sound like, and how did you react to it?
Yeah, I was kind of fortunate. Like, obviously there was negativity, but a lot of my friends were actually quite receptive to the idea, especially the ones that were reading those books and like having those top knowledge things. They sort of just saw that, my actions speak louder, and like, this kid's actually doing it. Like, we've been reading about this and he's actually doing it. Like, I got a lot of respect from them. And then the other guys, they just sort of washed me off. They were like, oh, just go and do your thing. There was no real negativity. It was more just like, there's no expectation. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, we're not sure if you're going to fail, if you're going to succeed. If you get both, like, great. Like, we're still going to know you, we're still friends. And I was totally fine with that. So I didn't really have too much negativity, which I was kind of blessed with, because I'm quite, I think if that had have happened, I probably wouldn't have had more confidence going into it.
Tell us about your mum. Describe your mum to us.
Yeah, my mum's an amazing person. Like, obviously, as any son would to their mum, like, you owe everything to them. So, she's an amazing person. She's been here for me since day one, supporting me every dream, every step of the way.
What does that look like, Josh?
It looks like just like being there for you when you need it most, like emotionally. Like, this isn't business. This is just real life stuff. Like, if I was having a tough day, she'd sit down with me and be like, what's going on? Let's talk it through. Like, don't bottle it up, get it out. Like, that sort of person. For me, it was real like a go-to person where I could just talk my feelings, which I don't think a lot of kids fortunately have. They have to go to like a mentor or like a small group leader or like some sort of influence in their life. But for me, it was my mum and a couple other people. But yeah, my mum's sort of been the rock, because she's been part of my family, my mother, my whole life. So, if I had an idea and she's like, are you serious about this? And I sort of had that confidence that she's going to back me up if I pursue it. So yeah, it's been that sort of rock bottom.
You don't need to name names, but the other mentors, family members, business people that you looked up for and approached.
Yeah, business, personal, church, everything like that. There's been a lot of people, but for business, they've been people like Bob Hurley. He hasn't really mentored me, but he's just like sort of inspired me and shown me things. Bob Hurley, he's the founder of Hurley. We were talking about Rip Curl before. So he's the CEO, founder of that company. I got in contact with him.
You just reached out to him?
Yeah, I DM'd him on Instagram. I said, hey, Bob, like, this is me. I'm super inspired. Like, let's catch up. And he's like, let's do it. And that's as simple as it was. And I was like, what the heck happened? Like, just actions speak louder. So
did he tell you what to do? Do you just ask him questions? Do you just use him as a bit of a sounding board?
Oh, with Bob, I was just using him for like inspiration, and obviously he's been there like since he's raised a multi-million, 100 million more plus company. I'm like, geez, like this guy knows what he's doing. So I'm like, I used him for inspiration. I'm like, how did you do this? Like, you know, what would you do if you're in my step? Like, I'm here, you know, what would you do? And stuff like that. But there's been like other like mentors that have been there day dot, like, you know, helping me. We've been a part of programs and stuff like that, and they've been a huge support. And you know, it's just a process. Like I look back at when I was 15, I'm like, man, I've grown so much since then. And like, it was because of those people.
2 years later?
Yeah, two years later, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, crap.
So you've got the idea for Seagull Milk. What's the first thing you do? You've got a name. So you got a name. Yeah. In terms of a product, I mean, like I said earlier, no shortage of sun creams on the market, and there's some big boys out there. We've got the Cancer Council product, we've got Banana Boat, to name two of the bigger ones. Yeah. Why was Seagull Milk going to be any different? No one knows it started by a 15-year-old, so you're not going to get kind of any sympathy purchases. That sounds terrible, but you know what I mean.
At the start we did, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
So, what's your point of difference?
So my point of difference, obviously, as I said before, come from a family, like that doesn't mean anything in the marketplace unless you can portray that really well. You know, my story of coming from a skin cancer affected family, but the key at the start, like it's changed like so much since then, but at the start it was purely innovation. That was our biggest marketing point of view, because my problem with sunscreen, and the reason why it all sort of started, is because I hated wearing it as much as I knew I should have. I hated it, just like every other 15-year-old does. They just want to go and get a tan. They want to look good, which I totally respect, because that was me at one point. But I just hated wearing it. Same with a lot of other people. It's greasy, it's thick, it stings your eyes. It's got full of, depends on what brand you choose, but majority of them have full of crappy chemicals and stuff like that. And I was very passionate about, you know, not wearing it. Like I would go out for surfs long periods of the day and just, you know, swear by not wearing it, but I knew I had to, and that's sort of where it started. I was like, okay, I want to make something that I want to wear that's not greasy, that's not thick like the natural sunscreens that I was wearing, because our family was health, you know, conscious. And so that's sort of how it all started. I knew that I wanted it to be healthy. I knew I wanted it to be like, you know, non-greasy, because like a lot of the natural ones are just so thick and gross. And if you've tried it before, you'd know what I mean. It leaves you white. It's just disgusting. It's such a put off. So I was like, there's, you know, 2 in 3 Aussies are supposed to get skin cancer, and, you know, there's heaps of chemical versions and stuff, but there's none that are naturally appealing to put on. So I want to fit in that space. So it was at the start innovation, but obviously it's changed a lot.
So then what do you do? Do you go and do you Google industrial chemist, or how do you come up with a formula?
It's actually as simple as that. That's actually what I did. So I get asked this question so much. Like, you know, we still have people think that I just formulated it in my kitchen, right, that I'm like some A-grade,
bit of milk, proper, bit of Seagull.
Yeah, they think I'm like some proper like chemist that have studied like flipping biology and stuff. I'm like, dude, like I wouldn't know crap about that. Like, you know, I just do stuff. And so I Googled like sunscreen manufacturers Australia, and, you know, I found the ones that I was interested, or that appealed to me, that were like, okay, these are the couple that I can approach, that, you know, based off their brand and what they were portraying on their website, I was like, okay, these guys seem cool. They've been around for a long time. And there was a couple different brands. I won't name them obviously, but there was like, you know, I think I had 10 to choose from, and I ended up contacting 5 of them.
Can I just understand that a little bit more, Josh? So you just said you Googled sun care brands. That says to me there are existing brands in the marketplace which are more likely to be your competitor than someone that's going to help you formulate a new sunscreen.
Oh, no. Sunscreen manufacturers.
Okay.
Not brands. Yeah. Manufacturers.
But even if they're manufacturers, are they creating product that is white labelled for others to buy and put their own brand on? Or are they...
a couple of them were, a couple of them were that I was contacting. You know, obviously there was, like, they're all TGA approved facilities. That's the number one thing that I didn't realize when starting a sunscreen company. Association. Yeah. So it's a legal body that basically looks after the whole pharmaceutical industry. And obviously being a sunscreen, you fit under that, because what you put on your skin goes into your body. And so they've got to make sure that you're not putting, poison in your sunscreen.
You shortlist these guys and
Yes.
you ring a couple and say, my name's Josh Apitz. I am 15 years old and I've come up with this name called Seagull Milk, which is going to be a sunscreen brand. And I'd like you to help me formulate it.
Yeah.
What's it going to cost? Is that the conversation?
I mean, it's as pretty simple as that. Yeah, I'm kind of simple guy. So a lot of people think I'm crazy, but yeah, that's pretty much what I did. I just contacted them. I'm like, look, this is me. I'm Josh. You know, I didn't obviously like pitch myself too well. I wasn't that confident at the time in like business and whatever. I just said, hey, you know, I've just checked out your website. You know, I like what you guys are doing. Hey, I'm thinking of starting a sunscreen. And then I just asked some criteria, like, can you make natural products? You know, what's the minimum water quantity? How much is cost per unit? Like all these simple things. And then obviously we just kept in contact through emails. And then after a while, I for the couple that did keep responding, because obviously that, like, as processes go on, people drop off and blah blah blah, which is totally normal. And so for me, there was a couple that stood out and got samples from them. I said, hey, like, you know, if we're going to go through with this, can I just make sure that, like, you know, what you can do is actually what you can do? So I asked for samples, tried them out with my friends. One stood out, and yeah, they're our guys today. So
you didn't actually go and meet with these people and sit at the bench with some Petri dishes and beakers and Bunsen burners and go, put a bit more of that in and less of that. And you didn't do any of that. It's just like in the mail.
I told them, I said, like, hey, this is my idea. Like, I want it to be, like, I told them, I said, I don't want it to be greasy. I don't want it to sting my eyes. I want it to be like, you know, good and clean ingredients. And I wanted, and then eventually it came to the point where they're like, would you like to add vanilla fragrance in it? I'm like, sure, why not? Like, who wouldn't like vanilla smelling sunscreen?
A little bit of burnt orange would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, like, yeah, just sort of, we worked together on it, I guess you could say, but majority of, the idea and, like, you know, they put it together, but it was my idea, and that's sort of how we collaborated with the manufacturers.
And in doing that, you then finalise a formula. You then obviously have to draw up some contracts to say to this industrial chemist, I own that. You made it, but I own it. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, so, like, obviously there's a whole lot of back-end legality, confidentiality agreements, everything like that. So we had to go and do all that, which at 15 years old, you don't really take too seriously. But like, there was so much I didn't even know existed, especially like for the industry I was choosing to go to. I had no idea, like, about anything. I didn't know, you know, you had to say you couldn't make false claims and everything like this. And looking back, it's been a very crazy journey, because at the start I was saying stuff that I shouldn't have been saying, like, it was false claims, and I didn't know that it was. I was just being a 15-year-old mucking around like I am.
Best hand ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just stupid stuff. And, like, you know, I could get done for advertising claims and stuff.
So you are going through that process. At the age of 15, you're coming up against, you're working with industrial chemists, you're having to get legal documents drawn up. There's all this, there's just so much stuff that you didn't plan on, didn't know about. Probably some of it sent you cross-eyed and bored the pants off you. And it's like, man, it's better off going back to school. What do you draw on in those situations? Do you just go to your mum and go, Mum, this is too hard? Or do you what inspiration, or where do you draw on in order to keep going?
For me, it was in that time, like, it did get very tiring. I didn't realize how big it was going to be. Like, it's not a simple t-shirt printing business that you just get from China. Like, it's a lot bigger than that, and I didn't factor that in. And neither did my mentors, because obviously they didn't know at the time either. And so we sort of just went in blind eye, and we're like, okay, you know, we've like, how I think about it is, you know, I've started this thing. There's no point me stopping it, because I've just wasted all this time, effort, and energy trying to get it up. So I'm going to keep going through with it. And I'm a very long-term sort of picture guy. Like, and a lot of my friends at this age don't quite understand, like, long-term picture, and they, like, think I'm crazy, and they're like, you know, you're wasting your time. But I know how the cycle works and stuff like that, and I know that it will pay off, you know, as long as I keep going with consistency. And so for me at that time, I was like, man, I hate this. I wish, like, I could just restart. Like, I like, it's just so big of a deal, and I got school to do, and like I got friends to hang out with, and this is just boring. You know, who wants to do all this crap? And so I was like, nah, stuff it. Like, I know that if I put in the effort, if I pull this off, like I knew the margins. I was well like educated with numbers and stuff, and I was like, okay, like this could be huge for me. Like at 15 years old, if I was pulling in this, like that would be pretty cool.
What's this?
Oh, it was like as in like specific numbers or like the margins and stuff.
Yeah, what were you hoping? Was it?
I mean, like I was going through them and I'm like, man, like if I could pull off like, you know, 150K, like not that it is 150K, but like around that, like on my first run, like that would be crazy to do at 15. Like I wouldn't, and I had friends that obviously, you know, Will Death, and he's been on this podcast before. He was a big influence on me at that time as well. Like he'd pulled in a couple, like at that time, I think he just pulled in $1 million in revenue. And I was like, man, this kid's doing stuff. Like what's stopping me doing it? And I was like, that was a big influence on me as well. And I was like, okay, what can I, like this is crazy if I could do this, and all it's going to take is blah blah blah. And so I sort of just like reverse engineered it, and I was like, okay.
So Josh, early days you ran a crowdfunding campaign. Was that in order to finance the formulation, the branding, the all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, at the time it was just for the formula, so it was pretty expensive. We didn't realize at the time, like a lot of things, but I think we needed to raise $30,000, yeah, off our first run, and that covers like all the testing, everything. And so like obviously you didn't realize, you know, you usually just pay for the unit, but we had like testing to cover, licensing to cover, everything. So it like boosted it up super high. And so yeah, we did a crowdfunding campaign, got featured in the news, which was really cool. Got a lot of publicity at the time, and a lot of my friends, and obviously as you're saying before, like a lot of people knew me at that time. Like I'm pretty well connected on the coast, and so the word spread and a lot of people ordered, and that's sort of how we got funded, was just purely. How
much did you raise? 30 grand?
We didn't raise all 30. Nah, we raised, I think it was like a third of it. I think we raised like nearly 10. It was pretty like, it was a hard run. That's when I was like, man, is this even going to work? And I was sort of like getting super demotivated, and was like, oh, this is so much effort. Like, and obviously I was having a mental game with myself. Was like, is this even worth it? Like, you know, what am I trying to do? Is this too big for me? And then, my grandmother, she sort of was like, all right, I'll finish this off for you. So we've been, had funding from my grandma. So she helped out with that, which I'm super grateful for.
Now, Josh, have you paid her back?
I know what family financials can get like, but we're paying it back.
Man, good man. I want to break this down. So we've got a formula. We've got a name.
Yes.
You have just got the one SKU, the one stock keeping unit, which is a 100-gram tube. Why? How did you go about it? Because I know even just choosing the vessel that's going to dispense your product can be quite complicated. You could have gone for a bottle, a pump, a tube. There's different shapes and sizes. Why did you arrive on the tube that you did, which is essentially, I guess, for those playing at home, it's sort of like a larger version of a toothpaste tube is what Seagull Milk comes in right now. Why did you arrive at that?
Purely because we did a bit of research. We realized that one of them, which makes no sense at all, but to me, logically, I was like, this is the one. It was because on aeroplanes, you can carry 100-gram tubes without like them taking it off you. So I was like, man, we're doing 100-gram tubes. But on top of that, like obviously if you get more big, like we had the option, I think we can do like pump packs and stuff. And for us, we're like, man, that like the order quantity goes like lower, but the cost is still like high because, obviously you're choosing bulk, but it's still pretty high. And we were like, okay, we want to build out brand awareness. We want to have stuff we can actually sell, not just like big pumps. Like we wanted to make the proof of concept really well, because at the stage no one had bought, like it was just an idea, like legit. I was just selling an idea of like a natural or a healthy, alternative to like slippery, greasy sunscreen that people hated. And so it was just an idea at this stage. And I was like, okay, we got to stick with 100 grams. At that point, we were like, okay, this is going to work financially for us. So we sort of stuck with it.
Who did the branding? How'd you get that done?
Yeah, that was all me. The whole tube, I designed it all. Yeah, I drew it up.
Even the seagull?
I drew the seagull at the start, and then we went on Upwork, got it outsourced. But the whole tube design, I designed it all by myself, the whole thing, and then we just professionally got it done on Upwork. So all the text and everything, which is actually something missing on there, but it's all good. Like, it's just little mistakes, just a part of the story. But it was all done by me. I'm very creative like that. I love designing stuff. So for me, I was like, okay, I want to do this, and that's sort of how it started. Trying to keep costs low as well. So,
have you managed to maintain your creativity despite now running a business where you kind of got to jump from finance to legals to branding to customer service? Has your creativity suffered or blossomed?
There's been periods, I think, for me. Obviously, like anyone, you go through dips and highs and lows, and places where you're inspired and places where you're in the growing stage. And so for me, it's sort of been up and down. There'll be times where I'm just like super frustrated. Like back when it was first starting, I'm like, man, I wish this was just big. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, just a desire to grow. Like, I just wanted to grow, and I was like, what's it gonna take? And like, I had no idea about financials. Like, I knew margins and all that sort of stuff, but marketing, and I didn't know all this sort of stuff. Like, I was just like going off like organic reach, and creativity is sort of like, okay, what am I going to do to get that organic reach? And like, you're trying to think outside the box, and being like a 2-man team at the time, which just my mum and myself and my cousin Peter, who was helping with IT and stuff. We were very drained at the time, and to run like that with school and everything, it's super hard. But I love challenging myself. I love putting myself out of my comfort zone, as you probably tell, and throwing myself in the deep end and just like, you figure it out. And I was like, okay, I've committed to this. My mindset's like long term. All right, what are we going to do? Just get over it, Josh. Stop thinking about now. Like, just get in the mind space and then do what you do.
There is a saying that says the magic happens outside of your comfort zone. Is that true?
Yeah.
Can you give an example of where you've looked, maybe you've got something ahead, or maybe you've just been through a particular process in the business where looking at it, you've gone, man, this is going to take me so far out of my knowledge base. And
yeah, there's been a couple of them. Not going to lie. But yeah, I mean, when you throw yourself in the deep end, you have to grow. You're like forced to grow. And so for me, one of my biggest things, and I've heard it from numerous people, but I live by it as well, is like, if you focus on the reward too much, you can get caught up, and like, if you don't meet it, you get super bummed. Like, and I've found myself doing that. But if you get caught up in the process and like, all right, I'm just going to better myself like every single day, and I'm going to throw myself in here, and I have no idea about marketing, and who cares? Like, I'm just going to, as long as I'm like getting better at it. I just wanted to dominate in every area of business. A lot of people like doubted me at the start. I was like, obviously you have to have a team, and I'm really big about team, but I'm just like, I want to know everything like about business, like marketing, just finances, like design, everything. I just want to be across the board, like above average in every element. So if it does need to be done, I can just go bam straight into it, rather than making excuses like, oh, I don't know that, like, and then the business suffers. So
okay, so we've got a formula, we've got a product, we've got packaging, we've got a name, we've got all that going on. You start a website, you got a little e-commerce play happening there where you can buy Seagull Milk on Josh's website for $24.95. We'll talk about pricing in a minute, but you're also wholesaling to various places around Australia, which are listed on your website. How have you gone about getting distribution?
At the start, just cold calls. If you've listened to me long enough, I'm just sort of the real simple guy. Like, just make a phone call, like,
To who?
Oh, to the store. I would just ask for the store manager, and I was like, hey, like, obviously they were independent stores. It wasn't like a big Woolworths or something at the time. And I was like, okay, can I speak to the store manager? Being like 15, 16 at the time, you get a big cut through rate. And so I told them my story, who I was, and they were like, let's get you in. And so that worked really well at the time, because being young, you're so open to like the world. People are wanting to help you. So, and it's still the same now, but just not as much. But yeah, at the start, it was just phone calls, making heaps of phone calls, making big databases, Googling all the health food stores around the Gold Coast, Brisbane, everywhere, everything. And so humble beginnings, that's how we started out. And now it's become more of like we've done ads in these like blockade wholesale order booklet things. And so we can get inquiries from them, and then we get their whole database, and we're just calling them as well. I'm really big for like phone calls, because you're not in front of the person, but you can still hear them. And, I've like sort of listened to a lot of people and got their knowledge of like, you know, understanding how they're hawking and like what their pain points and all that sort of marketing stuff are, and can sort of get them across the line.
Let's. I'm interested in the first 30 seconds of one of these phone calls, because they'd be tough. You're cold calling. No one, with all respect, knows your brand. You know, it's not
Exactly.
like, okay, you're new, you're still relatively new to this. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm an independent pharmacist, chemist.
Yeah.
You've called me. Off you go.
Okay, so I'm like, hey Tim, how are ya?
I'm good, man.
That's good. Hey, it's my name's Josh. I'm from Seagull Milk. Actually a 17-year-old entrepreneur from the Gold Coast. I just Googled your store on Google, and I just saw that you guys were selling, you know, health conscious products, and I thought, you know, why not? Sorry, I'm sort of on the pump here. And I'll just go along basically, and I'll just tell them like, hey, like I think that, you know, I would love to work with you guys. I think you guys would be a great fit for our product. And I know that heaps of our customers are already going to your store. And at that point of time, how I do the research is I'll either get customer inquiries from our store, and say Beck invited us to go and speak to your store, and I'd say, hey, look, Beck's one of your customers. She actually contacted us and wanted to see your product in our store because she wants to save shipping prices on our website. You know, would you guys be interested? And then I'll take them through the next stages. That's majority of the time how it works. So
Can I give you an idea, which may or may not be a good one, but to avoid it making it a completely cold call, have you considered sending something to the pharmacist or to the buyer in this store ahead of time that's packaged up in a pretty cool way, that, you know, it's not just a tube of your product in a satchel, but I don't know, making some kind of little song and dance, creating a bit of theatre around it. I don't know what that is. Is it a seagull feather in an envelope, and, you know, telling someone you're going to be calling them shortly as to why you've just sent this? Have you considered that?
we have, like wow boxes. We've had that idea. It's like a wow box where you go ahead and you sort of make an impression before you even talk to them. I've sort of thought about that for the big boys, like the big, let's just say like a Go Vita. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that, but it's just a big health conscious brand that like stems, it's like a Woolworths of like health food, and like, or Flannery's or something like that. Because independent stores, like they're amazing, but we find that we convert really quite quickly over the phone. But for like a big store, obviously you got to get past the gatekeeper. It's a lot harder. So that's why we've saved like a lot of the big guys for up until now, because we're getting ready with like wow boxes and you know, all this sort of back end assets that we can send to them that'll like make the experience a lot better rather than just a sell.
Looking at your website, distribution is right now limited to independent stores, health
It
stores,
is at the moment.
Pharmacies, etc. So,
Yeah, so
is there a next step to get a Chemist Warehouse or a Woolworths or one of the big guys on board? And what's that look like? How do you do that?
How we tell who we're going to target, like for stores, like B2B, is we obviously first look at our target, or like our B2C clientele, like who are the people we're actually selling the products to, because if we can identify that avatar, then we can figure out where they're shopping elsewhere. So two of our biggest is the vegan clientele and like mums and bubs and like environmentalists, like three, but I count like vegans and environmentalists as sort of one. So we figure out like where would those vegans shop in? Like for most cases, it's like the Flannery's, the Go Vitas, sometimes Woolworths, but Woolworths is pretty generic. And like all these other, like whether they be independent stores or big stores, we sort of figure out, okay, what would be the strategy to get in there? And so another one is like mums and bubs. And we've just recently figured out that by law, children have to wear sunscreen. So they're in a supply and demand situation. So if we can cut that and put our products there, and there's a huge like advertising campaign that we're going to do to those childcare centers, because obviously you don't want to put chemicals on your kids. We've had like hundreds of parents say that to us, thousands of parents say that to us, and now it's like we've got this opportunity to be their sunscreen supplier for the kids.
Awesome strategic partnership with like an ABC Learning or something, where you become the primary supplier of cream to them, and then all of a sudden the parents are saying, "Oh, I like that."
So that's where our mindset is. I'm like, man, we can play big here. So I was talking about innovation before for the sunscreen. Now we're focusing on health, like very big on health, but still like innovation, but mainly health. Like that's our number one industry. And obviously there's a lot of sunscreens in that, but yeah, we're going to dominate there.
Has pricing been tough, Josh?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, we have like, you know, you have that 10% that are like, oh, it's too expensive, but ultimately I'm like, hey, if it's too expensive, it's not for you then. Like, you know, if you're willing to pay for it.
What's your formula for arriving at a price?
So $24.95. It was more of a split testing thing we sort of did. We were like asking people around us, we were like, hey, if we launch this, what would you pay for it? And obviously you have a varying number, but we sort of skewed it between, you know, the average health conscious sunscreen, and it's around like $30 to $25, depending, because you've got like the whole dermatology approved, I can't even say the word properly, but like those really high expensive, like $50, $60 sunscreens that you only get like this much. And then you've got like the real commercial pub packs, Coles and Woolies, like big tubs for like a quarter of the price. So we were like, okay, that's the range we're sort of competing in, but of that we're in the health spectrum. So we're like, okay, we're around that $25, $30 range. And so for us at the time, we're like, we don't want to go too premium. We want to sort of be like quite competitive, so we just settled at $24.95. We're like, okay, and obviously margins in the back end all figured that out as well. So we're like, okay, this will work for us. It's a good competitive price point, and we think we'll do well with it, which we have. So
Seagull Milk is now 2 and a bit years old. What are your mates saying now?
My mates, well, I've cracked a few jokes with them. Like April Fool's, I announced that I made a meal, and everyone was sort of like not even surprised. They were like, oh, okay, that's sick. Like, congrats. Like, they weren't even surprised. It was like not even a question. And I was like, sort of feeding my ego in a way. But I was like, yeah, just having a joke with them. And they always ask me all the time, like, oh, what's your sales? Like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I can't even tell you about it. I'm crushing it. And they're just like, it's like this really cool relationship. I just like play around with them. And there's a lot of kids actually in my grade back at school. I live just across the road from my old school. So I see my friends like quite frequently, and a lot of them have actually started businesses themselves. So I'm really stoked. Yeah, it's like sort of seeing, I don't know whether it's being like, same with when I saw Will, like you just see kids around you doing things and you're like, man, why aren't I doing this? So I think that's sort of what they're getting. A lot of them are thinking like that now. They're asking me questions. They're like, what would you do? And like, you know, if, you know, what business should I do, or how can I start? And like, how do you do numbers and stuff? So yeah, it's been cool.
What can we expect in the coming 12 months, Josh? You're going to launch additional SKUs, or
you'll be? I'll let my actions determine that, but it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. Like, I've committed to myself, because turning 18 in August, so I've said to myself, hey, like, you know, 18's my number that I'm gonna, you know, that's when I'm switched on full time. Like, I'm gonna be almost finishing up school. Going to have zero responsibility with school. I'm going to be full time in the business. So next year, I think it's going to be quite big for us, because yeah, the last 2 years, I say it to everyone, it's been more preparation and more like getting all this knowledge and information, and like, you know, listening to people, what are they doing, finding out like all these little strategies. And now it's going to be a matter of just putting it all together and like rushing forward with it. And yeah, so it's going to be really, really cool, especially with childcares and stuff.
You
like that.
have got an awesome ride ahead. In saying that, what do you need help with? There's a lot of people listening, plenty of business owners who are probably really inspired by what you've done, and you know, many wish they'd probably started their businesses earlier. What do you need? What support do you need?
Support, man, I mean, firstly, if anyone's interested, like, feel free to connect. Like, I'm on LinkedIn and everything like that. So if you ever need to like talk about stuff, or want inspiration, or like just need to run questions by, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's just Joshua Apitz. But I mean, any support is really appreciated. Like,
well, let's make it real easy. Maybe there's someone listening who has an in to a Woolworths or a Chemist Warehouse, or a you know, a strategic partner that they think would be suitable for you to pursue. Do you want to give an email out?
Yeah, sure. info at seagullmilk.com.
Well, buddy, I hope there are people listening who can provide you some introductions, because that'd be fantastic. Well done, mate. You've awesome. Inspired a generation, and I'm so glad you could come on here and share your story, because I've loved chatting to you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
How good is that young fella? Seriously, love it. If you can help him out in any way, please do. Go ahead and make contact with him via email or LinkedIn, and I'll put both those links in the show notes over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/516. But let's see what we can do. Let's build that business for him. Now, here's what grabbed my attention from that chat with Josh. Attention grabber number one. If there are young people in your life, then please go out and encourage them to start a business. In fact, maybe suggest they identify a problem that they can't find an adequate solution to, and then go ahead and create that solution via a new product or service. Great thing to do with a few mates over a non-alcoholic beer, I would suggest. Attention grabber number 2. I love the way Josh went about starting the business. He had no sunscreen knowledge, no product development knowledge, no business knowledge, yet he just rolled up his sleeves, probably of his wetsuit, and got on with it. And attention grabber number 3. I love how solid Josh's why is, given his skin cancer affected family. If you're not clear on why you do what you do, then maybe watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk titled Start With Why. It's pretty bloody good. Well, that's what grabbed my attention. Whatever grabbed yours, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/516 and leave a comment.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Yes, indeedly doodly. It's time to reward another motivated listener for taking some serious marketing action. Today's winner is Nicole Alexandra of the Artisan? I think we'll go with Artisan cookie brand, cookies.au, and that's cookies with a K. And here's what young Nicole had to say. Hi, Timbo. I am a full-time student, full-time chef, and full-time entrepreneur. Wow, you're busy. My boyfriend, Felix, religiously listens to your podcast whenever he's commuting. We run cookies.au, a small artisan-based bakery specialising in Australian and Japanese flavoured inspired cookies in Sydney. Japanese-inspired cookies. My boyfriend has been summarising every episode of your podcast, and we've been implementing every idea that works in our business. Thank you for that. One of the key ideas that we have implemented is following up with our customers for reviews, and more importantly, acting on their feedback. They go on to become loyal customers, and what's more, they become our brand ambassadors that we never had. That's a great tip, Nicole. Did you get that on my show? Well done to you. Thanks so much, Timbo. Keep doing what you do. You're a legend. She says, cookies.au. Now, I've got to let you in on a secret. I went to their website. It was down. I went to their Instagram, and there was a phone number on their Instagram profile, which I rang on numerous occasions, and I just either it rang out or went to some weird answering machine, and I didn't get a call back, and I wanted to tell you that your website's down and then play it on the show. But anyway, that didn't happen. Hey, Nicole, for going to all that trouble and being an implementer, you have won a full range of live spirits valued at $500, $75 Torsion Bar voucher, Bonjoro license, vouchers for Sendall, vouchers for tradies, some Mr. Lee's Hong Kong beef noodles, promotion on the show, and a backlink in the show notes. Well done to you. Everyone else, send me an email, tim@timreid.com.au. Share one idea that's working for you. If I read it out on air, you win. Well, that should almost do it, but not quite. Feel free to leave me your feedback over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/516. You can also grab a copy of my book, The Boomerang Effect, which I think you will benefit from if you are into marketing. Next time around, we catch up with Mark Fazio, who, along with his identical twin brother, who he tells me isn't as good looking, figure that out, and a bunch of family members, they're Italian, run a telco. Yeah, like a big telco called Mate. It's a great story. If you're getting value from listening, then please let other business owners know about the Small Business Big Marketing podcast, which was presented by me, Timbo Reid. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.